going to go ahead and get started, especially because of time. We want to make sure we honor that. Thank you so much for joining us this morning to talk about the ELD standards implementation. And I will say the team has an awesome day planned for you. This morning, we'll spend most of our time exploring the standard course of study and really the resources that are housed in the Standards Resource Hub. And then in the afternoon, we will provide some guidance and recommendations for your local implementation and really provide you a large chunk of time to start these implementation plans with your PSU teams. You will notice that actually most of the PSUs attending today share similar LHEAD counts as you. We did this intentionally because we really wanted to make sure that you would have an opportunity to network and share ideas with PSUs that are just like you. So one other thing that we wanted to remind you of is we did ask for you to bring a PSU team with you today that could really help you make the important decisions and plan the strategic plans that you need to put in place to make your local implementation of the standard successful. We will be working quite a bit from the slide deck today, so if you want to follow along, please access the slide deck using the tiny URL you see there on this slide. We actually suggest that maybe you have one window with WebEx pulled up and then another window with the slide deck pulled up, so that way you can look at the resources today. So my name is Stacy Daniel. I serve as the section chief for ELA and languages, and I have the privilege and honor of working for this awesome team that you see here. And I'll let my colleagues introduce themselves, starting with Susan.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We're really excited to spend the day with you. I am an ESL consultant with the DPI team, and I work primarily with PowerSchool and EL data, but I have had so much fun working on these standards. So I'm going to turn it over to Marshall. Marshall?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Marshall Foster, and I'm one of the 4 ESL Title III consultants, and I'm glad to be here as well. I want to hand it on over to Ivana.
I love the little volleyball game we get to play. So hi, I'm Ivana Manthor Anderson, one of the 4. My focus is on program quality in the West, but I love serving all of you and working with all these guys, and it's exciting to see you all here. I even see some names of people coming back for more. We must be pretty good. Anyway, good morning, and I'm going to turn it over to Sally.
Good morning, buenos dias, assalamu alaikum, and bon dia. We're really excited that you're here with us today. We appreciate your attendance and participation. My name is Satli Stocks, ESL Title III consultant, one of the fantastic 4, and I support program quality in the East area of the state. And I'll turn it back to Stacy.
And Teresa Parker is our administrative specialist for our section. You will most likely hear from her when you're getting your certificates of completion, so look out for an email from her. We always like to begin our sessions with looking to our vision. So you'll notice that today we're upholding our vision by focusing on the implementation of the ELD standards. What we want to do is bring your attention to the use of multilingual learners here. So for many of you who have seen us share our vision time and time again, you may have seen English learners and multilingual students, but we've now made the shift to multilingual learners. As you might already know, especially if you subscribe to our listservs, communication was released on our communication channels on Monday, March 21st. That was last Monday. To notify the rest of our state that DPI will be making this shift in language. And many of you probably already know that WIDA has made this shift, as well as several organizations and states. So we will be using this asset-based language as well to really, 1, avoid labeling students in terms of language they do not yet know. 2, to really acknowledge that students' first languages and cultures are a strength. And then 3, reiterate the importance of literacy and proficiency in multiple languages. Now, we do recognize that in the field of K-12 education, various terms are used to describe multilingual learners, but for policy and legislation purposes, DPI will maintain the term English learners, But for all other purposes, DPI will begin to use the term multilingual learner. So we hope and we strongly encourage for you to join us in using this asset-based and inclusive term, especially at the local level. We've actually linked a letter from our leadership regarding this shift in language, and we really encourage you and feel free to use this letter to aid you in your PSU discussions around this shift in language. And I will say that you should expect to see the agency complete this shift by July 1 of this year. So we're going to share our agenda with you for today. We're going to spend a little bit of time bringing everyone's voices to the table and start thinking about the work ahead. And then we're going to provide a bit of background information about how we got here, the timeline, the steps, who was involved, and then we'll jump right into the major revisions of the standards. We'll spend a majority of the morning really exploring the available resources that are newly available in the hub and that can support your local implementation of the standards. And then in the afternoon, the team is going to be providing guidance for local implementation, what to expect for your first year of implementation, and give you some time to really dig in and do some planning. And then after we've given your PSU some planning time, we are going to provide each PSU an opportunity to share their plans and exchange ideas and feedback. So again, this is why having those individual devices, especially in the afternoon, will be helpful when you're in breakout rooms with other PSUs. And I will also mention here that we really do encourage you to come back after the 2-hour break for the afternoon session. One, because in order to get your certificates of completion for the morning and the afternoon, or for the whole day, you'll have to attend both. But more importantly, a lot of the feedback that we've been getting from PSUs the past 2 weeks have been about how powerful it was to be able to start planning, but more importantly, to be able to network and connect with other PSUs of similar L head counts. So really, really make sure that you come back this afternoon to do that. And then of course, we'll end with some reflection time as well as some updates and answer any questions that you have. So I'm actually going to turn it over to Sat Lee now, who's going to start with our welcoming activity to bring everyone's voices to the table.
Thank you, Stacy. Well, as Stacy said, we're going to begin our conversation today with a poll question. We have 2 questions in our poll, and we want to learn more about your role and your goal for this PD. So you should be seeing the polling questions popping up on the right side of your screen. There you go. And we have different options. What is your role? Coordinator, instructional coach, content teacher, ESL teacher, administrator, parent liaison, other. If we didn't list your role, please feel free to add it in the chat. We would love to see who has joined us today. And then what is your role? What is your goal for this PD? So you want to learn more about the ELD standards, explore the ELD standards hub, plan implementation for your PSU, or other. So we're going to allow a few more seconds. And the second option, you can select as many as you think apply to you. And don't forget, once you have selected your options, hit the submit button so we can see the results. Okay, Stacy, whenever you think we're ready, we can close the poll.
We're at about 75%, Satli, so we'll wait another minute or 2.
Awesome. Thank you, Susan.
You're welcome.
I see in the chat while we find our results, we have some school administrators, director of K-12 ELA and social studies, and principal of one of our schools in Lincoln County. Thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and close the poll now, Sattli, because it looks like we almost have everybody.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah, it's working. It's coming.
It's okay, that give us some time to open the slide deck. All right. So we have 39% ESL teachers, but we also have some coordinators in the house, content area teachers, that is super exciting, and 17% administrators. We have also parent liaisons. Oh my God, that makes me so happy. And we have everybody is interested in learning more about the standards, exploring the hub, and you're going to be right on point, because we are going to explore each of the resources that we have uploaded there, and then plan your implementation, organize your implementation plan for the next year. Perfect, thank you. We really love that we have a diverse audience today. And now we're going to talk about the parking lot. So we have lots of information to share today and lots of links. So please make sure that you have access to the slide deck so you don't lose any of those links. But in order to have a productive session, we want to encourage you to post all questions and suggestions, any ideas that pop up when we're talking about the different resources, post them in the parking lot. The team will review and respond all the questions during the session as best as we can. And you can see on the screen, this is the parking lot, how it looks. We have two columns. One is for you to post your question, and the other one where we are responding. And you can see there are some questions from the previous sessions we have had last week and this week. So you can just check maybe something you are thinking about, and maybe the answer is already there. And then at the bottom,
but she probably put them on it. I don't think she did. I don't think I've seen them.
we can, okay. And then at the bottom, you can see there is another option that says, I have an idea I would like to learn more about. So please feel free to add everything that you want there, because all those suggestions and recommendations will help us, will be our guide for future professional development. So we really appreciate that you include that information in there if you think that we can do something better or include something in our next sessions. So we are going to share in the chat our link so you have access, and we're going to revisit this during the presentation. So we're going to go to our last activity for now, the beginning activities, and we have one quote on the screen. We're using WebEx today, our platform, and we are going to use the chat feature a lot. So we want to make sure that everybody has access to the chat, and we're going to do it by reflecting on this quote. So it says, without standards, there can be no improvement. So tell us in the chat what resonates with you from this quote. And don't forget, every time that you send a message in the chat, select everyone before you send your message. This way, all attendees and hosts will be able to see your comment, and we will join the conversation. So I'll be quiet for a few minutes and reflect. Without standards, there can be no improvement. So tell us what resonates with you. Excellent. I see some answers already in the chat. Standards allow for everybody to be working towards the same goal. Yes, a common goal is so important. It's always needed in order to improve. If you don't know where you're going, you don't know where you are. Wow, yes. Standards provide a metric for student achievement. Standards help hold everyone accountable. Yes. Standards provide a means of assessing improvement. Improvement requires something to work towards. Standards provide the end goal. So improvement can be made to attain that standard and goal. Yes, we're talking about improvement. It's a roadmap. It's our guide. Having a common goal knowing where you are so you know where you're going, and knowing where you're going to know where you are. It's our baseline.
That's a good one.
There you go. Standards set an expectation. Yes, when you know what is expected, then you know what you need to work on. You must have a goal. Perfect. We see another common word there, expectations, improvement expectations, common goals. All right. I see we have some comments about how you can hold everybody accountable. You don't know if you don't have the standards, right? Knowing where to go. Okay, so this is great. We really appreciate your comments. Keep them going because everyone can see your comments. And we really love this. I want to read them all too, so I get but I know we have so much information that I'm just going to stop here and say, yes, know the destination. Perfect. Again, the common goal. Yes, we love that. So, okay. So thank you very much. The chats work. And we have a fantastic audience today sharing a lot. So we hope to hear more from you as we move in our session. So now I'm going to turn it back to Ivana, our awesome Ivana, to tell us how we got here.
Thanks, Sally. I always love hearing what you guys have to say about that quote because it just makes it clear that we all know how important standards are. And I really love the constant comments about having a common goal when we're thinking about all of our stakeholders. You know, we want our teachers, our students, our families, everybody, our administrators all looking toward the same goal, toward the same place. So with all that said, how did we get where we are? How did we come to the 2020 version of the WIDA ELD standards, which are the North Carolina Standard Course of Study, our ELD Standard Course of Study for our multilingual learners? Well, as you can see at the top of this slide, you have a hyperlink. And this hyperlink will take you to sort of a prettier timeline, one that really focuses on 2021 and 2022. So you have that link on the slide and it will go in the chat box as well. But let's start all the way back when we began the journey with North Carolina joining the WIDA Consortium in 2008. We were very excited to adopt the English language development standards that are aligned to the English language proficiency assessment, ELD and ELP. With that, we became part of a consortium of states that were all using the same standards and the same measurement of English proficiency. Implementation of those standards and the assessment began in the 2008-2009 school year. And I see some of you on today that were around, like me, way back then when all of this was starting. The standards were refreshed in 2012 and then again updated in 2020, which brings us to the revised standards that we're discussing today. All right, now we're taking a big leap to this longer arrow that takes us to March of 2021, when the North Carolina State Board of Education unanimously approved the updated 2020 ELD Standard Course of Study for implementation in our next upcoming school year, 2022-2023. So this approval marked the start of what's called the installation process, where we prepared for initial implementation of the ELD standards through planning PSU professional development, creating supports and resource development, just like we're sharing with you today. So you can, again, I'll remind you, you can click on that link at the top to see more details about what went on and is going on in 21-22. So our first step after approval, not quite yet, our first step after approval were to draft the SCOS overview document and the glossary. So those have been out for a while and you may have seen them. We also offered the Coffee Chats, which is a PD series exploring the updated standards. And I think I recognize some names of people who joined us for that as well. We then convened our writers and our reviewers to create the additional documents. We took those documents through leadership approval and we released all of them to the field. So now that purple arrow for 2022 is where we actually are today. So the PD that you're attending is focused on our district and our school level implementation. As we prepare for full implementation in 22-23, the gray arrow will be the kickoff for the summer conference with a focus more on our classroom implementation for all of our educators of our multilingual learners. So we are offering strands in the summer conference for our ESL teachers, our multilingual lead teachers, those with multifaceted roles, and my favorite, the content teachers. So we'll tell you more about this later in the presentation, but we want you to be thinking about your content teachers. There will be a strand this summer specifically for content teachers to learn more about the ELD standard course of study here in North Carolina. We'll also have a chance to dig deeper into the hub and all of the materials that you'll be looking at in a more brief overview today. So as I said, we'll share more about that at the end of the day, but that is always one of my favorite pieces of our year, so I have to talk about it just a little bit. All right, if we go on to the next slide, I really want to take a moment to thank our writers and our reviewers. So the writers were an amazing and knowledgeable group of educators that came from the following NCDPI collaborative groups. And please note that right now, the names of these groups still include EL. We will be transitioning to ML by July 1st. So the groups that were involved in the writing and the revisions and the reviews, were the EL support team, the EL lead teachers, the EL teacher network, our English Learner Advisory Council, our NCDPI content partners, and also NCDPI leadership. And to each of you that may be with us today, thank you, thank you, thank you. We do also truly appreciate our volunteer reviewers. So although this step of reviewing was not required by the revision and installation process, we felt very strongly that we needed to have this review as part of the key to providing quality products to the field. So a special thank you to our reviewers as well. They came from these same groups, same collaborative groups here at DPI. All right, now that you know a little bit about how we got where we are, I'm going to turn it over to Marshall to go deeper into the major revisions to the standards. Marshall?
Thank you, Ivana. All right, thanks for sharing the historical background, and that brings us into today. Now we're going to look at both a broad overview and changes and share some specific examples. So as you see on this slide, the North Carolina ELD Standards Course of Study is anchored by 4 big ideas, and they are interwoven throughout the standards. The big ideas support the design of standards-based educational experiences that are student-centered, culturally and linguistically sustaining, and responsive to English learners' strengths and needs. Let's start with equity of opportunity and access. So English learners come from a wide range of cultural, linguistic, educational, and socioeconomic backgrounds, as we all know, and have many physical, social, emotional, experiential, and/or cognitive differences, and they all bring assets, potential, and resources to our schools that educators must leverage to increase equity in standards-based systems. The second, integration of content and I always want to say knowledge, content and language. This idea relates to the fact that English learners develop content and language concurrently with academic content as a context for language learning, and language is a means for learning academic content. The third one, collaboration among stakeholders. This idea relates to the fact that stakeholders have different areas of expertise and are often responsible for different aspects of educational planning and delivery. However, collectively, they are responsible for the success of our English learners. And the fourth and last is the functional approach to language development. So this idea relates to the fact that individuals do make choices with language to organize their ideas in particular ways, to convey the relationships among these ideas, and about what types of words are most effective for our message. So the explicit teaching of how language works can help English learners expand what they can do with language. The result is that students become increasingly aware and strategic in their use of language to negotiate meaning and achieve their purposes in various contexts. And so those are our 4 big ideas. All right. So since its inception in 2003, there have been 4 editions of the ELD standards, but certain universal themes are threaded throughout the 4 editions. First, WIDA has always envisioned language through a content lens, and you can see this in standard statements, row 1. And so you can see the importance of the intertwining of the 2 constructs as a means of contextualizing learning. Second, WIDA has maintained a functional approach to language development, and you can see this in language functions, row 4, where a purpose has always been attached to meaningful communication. Historically, the standard statements have been couched in a larger framework that has included the K-12 performance definitions, that in 2020 have been converted to the grade level cluster proficiency level descriptors. This can be seen in row 5. Lastly, WEDA has always complied with federal requirements of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, for years representing language as 4 independent language domains. You know, we all know these: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. But most recently, combining and extending the language domains to represent the interpretive and expressive modes of communication. And this can be seen in rows 2 and 5. All right, so the framework consists of 4 components: the ELD standards, key language uses, language expectations, and proficiency level descriptors, which we'll go over in a minute. These components are like building blocks of language development and range from broad to narrow in scope. They work together to make a comprehensive picture of language development. Now, the standards themselves have not changed, but this is a reminder that Standard 1 wraps around the other standards and should be integrated into them. All right, so another major change that you saw on that previous slide is the modes of communication, interpretive and expressive. Now, these modes of communication increase accessibility options for students and emphasize multimodal forms of communication, namely by adding viewing in conjunction with listening and reading, as well as representing in conjunction with speaking and writing. All right. Another major revision that you'll see on the next slide here is the addition of the key language uses. So the key language uses describe prominent ways that language is used in school across all disciplines. Very important. When educators make choices about how to integrate content and language, the key language uses can help provide focus and coherence. Key language uses share some common aspects across disciplines, another important aspect, and yet each discipline also has unique ways of applying each. So what you can see on this slide are brief definitions of each of these key language uses. All right, so the next major revision is the addition of language expectations. The language expectations set goals for content-driven language learning, and they are set up to look similar to other content area standards. Very important. They add specificity to the ELD standard statements and key language uses, and make visible the language associated with the content areas. Very important. In the language expectations, the 4 individual language domains, once again, listening, speaking, reading, and writing, are consolidated into the 2 more inclusive modes of communication, that interpretive and expressive, which you saw on the previous slide. And so as you see there, in the nomenclature of each language expectation, the entire item, including the bullets, is the language expectation. And then in the nomenclature, you can also see the grade level cluster, in this case 6-8, followed by the key language use, which in this case was narrate, and then followed by the mode of communication, which in this case is interpretive. All right, so the next major revision is the proficiency level descriptors. They describe a continuum of language development for activities that target language expectations. All right. They provide a detailed articulation of how students might develop language across the 6 levels of English language proficiency, and are provided for each communication mode and each grade level cluster. All right, so let's take a look at what we've seen and think of application and implementation with regards to informing and changing instructional practices. Take a few minutes to think of either narrowly, for example, maybe like a grade or subject, a grade span, etc., or broadly, elementary, secondary, middle school, or K-12 altogether on this, and think about what instructional practices will change and what challenges will you face in your PSU. And as you come to some ideas on that, you can share that in the chat.
Some good answers so far.
Excellent.
I see a lot of talk about integrating language and content, collaboration between ESL and content area teachers, considering language objectives more intentionally.
Excellent.
Ooh, I love this, Walter. Having PDs with all school personnel so that we all speak the same language and move to the same direction.
Absolutely.
Monica, if there was a like upvote or like in WebEx, I would definitely do that for your comment. I love her comment about literacy doesn't just include reading and writing through usual text, but includes materials which are mainly technology driven. Yeah, definitely talking about how text also means non-print text like videos and infographics and other things and pictures and art and things like that. What else are you seeing in the chat, Marshall?
Lessons have content goals and language goals. There's more collaboration that will be needed, and that's very true. And I think that WIDA was thinking about this when they created this, and then with that intentionality of you see how things are interwoven and also help you in a way to be able to work across disciplines and with your other stakeholders. Let's see, adding visual response options can help newcomers with academic knowledge show what they can do. Very good. Absolutely. It says help show that all teachers are teachers of language in some way, not just multilingual learners teachers. Absolutely. I need to find my glasses too. It makes it easier to. Another one says, I think change or more to do from many perspectives is a challenge altogether. But I do think if collaborating with the whole, then it can be very successful. Absolutely. I see another collaboration. Another more collaboration will be needed. Yeah. That's all I see so far.
I love that people are just really jumping onto that collaboration piece because it's so critical for everyone. And that's really why we invited the teams, no matter where your conversation is in terms of collaboration in your charters or your districts. These resources that we're sharing with you will help deepen that collaboration. I love that everyone is seeing that.
Yeah.
Are we ready to move on, Marshall?
I believe so. I don't see any more responses. And so thank you all for that. Our next slide here is about our parking lot. And so this is a reminder to post any kind of questions, ideas, any suggestions using the parking lot. The team will be reviewing and responding to the questions during the session. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Satli, I think here.
Yes, Marshall. Thank you.
Excellent.
And I love there was a comment about intentionality. It's like you are doing the work already. So now it's more like how we follow up. So I really love that comment. Okay, so now we are going to talk about the ELD Standards Resource Hub. We're going to explore the different resources that we have available. We're going to add the link in the chat so you can explore. And we want to share with you that we created this hub to house all the standard related resources to support implementation. This hub was designed in Canvas LMS, the learning management system, and is a public repository that may be accessed without any login credentials, meaning you can upload it to the different outlets you have in your district, share it with the different stakeholders, and none of them will have to log in. So you don't have to worry about providing a password or a username. So that's something good. And the system will show you a little pop-up window saying you need to log in, but you don't have to. You can still navigate the hub, download the different resources, and you will not have to log in. So that's something to keep in mind. This resource hub is a one-stop shop to access different resources, including the NCELD Standards Course of Study, the ELD and ESL Title III Program Glossary, the mapping, unpacking, and crosswalk supporting documents, and we're going to explore each of those in the next slides. In addition to archives to standard-related professional learning offerings. In the past semester, we offer a couple of different sessions that you can access here. You can go and explore the slide deck and the video recordings, and these are the ELD coffee chats and the series meeting the needs of English learners or multilingual learners in arts education. So we really invite you to go and explore that. And we're gonna let me add the link in the chat before we go to the next slide. Okay, perfect. Oh, we're gonna explore the hub today. Thank you. So you see, this is the home. We have just two options, home and modules. And the home, you see a brief description of what the hub is, a short URL, and a direct link so you can access or share this link. And then at the bottom, you have different icons with all the different resources. And those are the ones we're going to explore. And some information about ELD Canvas courses we have and contact information. Thank you, Susan. I love it. So we're going to explore the very first document today. And some of you, ESL teachers, lead teachers, coordinators, you may be familiar with the WIDA documents, the new edition. So what we did is we compiled all that information into one document so it was easier for everybody to access it. So this is the ELD Standard Course of Study, which became the North Carolina official document that includes the standard framework, the ELD standard statements, the key language uses, the language expectations, and the proficiency level descriptors. So it's easy because then you can have this document and then you can pull out from there when you're talking in your different meetings with other stakeholders in your district, including parents. And these components are organized in grade clusters. So you will see the same way we have our assessment. It's kindergarten, first grade, second and third, fourth, fifth, 6th, 8th, and 9th and 12th grades. So we're going to have some time in the next slide to explore, because we want you to go explore these documents and then give us some information, some ideas, what you think about them. And also, we want to recommend that every time that we have these moments in which you explore, you get some notes, because this will help you in the afternoon when you're working with the other PSUs and then with your team working on your implementation plan. So it's your turn to explore this resource, and we're going to have 5 to 10 minutes, and we want you to briefly explore pages 1 through 4, and you'll see what Marshall was showing, the differences, the new changes. That's what we have in those pages, so you don't have to just skim through them. And then you're going to choose a grade cluster and go and look through the standards, the key language uses, the language expectations. And while you're doing this, we would like you to think about this question: what plans will your PSU need to put this in place to create or increase collaboration among educators in your district for successful implementation of the standards? So with Marshall, we were talking about instructional changes. What were you changing in your instruction? But now we're thinking, what do we need to create or maybe adapt or increase or change to increase collaboration among educators? So we're going to leave the slide on, and we have our link to the document and the directions on the chat. And we're going to just leave you a few minutes. We're going to know that you're ready when we start seeing some comments in the chat. So I'll be quiet for a few minutes and let you explore. Okay, so we're going to allow a couple of more minutes. Remember to add your comments in the chat so then we know that we can continue. Okay, I see some comments in the chat. So it says, discuss how to use in PLCs, meet as a department and with core teachers in PLCs, yes. Talk about it in staff meetings. Oh, I love this, Leslie. Having common planning is something my school uses to allow us to plan together. And then what we're gonna do is sit and talk about this. Oh, perfect. Sharing during those different sessions that you have that you can work together. Okay, Michelle says she likes how the proficiency descriptors are more detailed and explained. And you're gonna see in the next documents, Michelle, it's just fantastic. You're gonna love them. Okay. Yes, that's true. Your teachers need more time to collaborate, to work together with content area teachers. So hopefully you can start planning for those spaces for them to collaborate. So glad interpretive and expressive modes of communication have been included. Okay, we're gonna collaborate with content area teachers. It's beneficial for them to know about this. And remember that collaboration is one of the big ideas Marshall was talking about. So how we can help everybody in the building know that multilingual learners are, they need the support from everybody, and we all are helping them. Work in the PLCs. Okay, great, excellent. So start collaborating, adding more intentional discussions during your PLCs and planning sessions. Thank you. Okay, so let me see. I don't see any more comments. Thank you very much. I'm going to continue with our second resource for today is the glossary. And I think I'm going to turn it over to Ivana to share about this resource. Are you with us, Ivana?
I am with you. Of course, right as you said that, I closed the wrong screen and I don't have my notes, but I bet by now I can do this. So the glossary is our second piece of the puzzle. And the glossary has terms and acronyms related to the English language development and English as a second language Title III program. And so you will see in the screen that on the left hand of the chart is where we have our acronyms and our terms. Those are the words that we are using in the glossary. In the right hand side, you see the actual definitions, which include citations so that you can see where we have gotten this information. Thank you. I see, and I appreciate the glossary already in the comments. That's awesome. You will also see that sometimes there are bold words that are in the description, and those are words that are also terms in the glossary. So you can see in the bottom right hand of your screen, there is an icon, and that icon will take you to the glossary document. It will also, we will also put that, there it is, we will also put the link into the chat box for you to be able to look at the glossary, because what we want to do is allow you to dig into this. So this glossary is going to allow all of our stakeholders that are working with our multilingual learners to be able to see the words and the terms that we use and to be on the same page. Now, as you decide to look at the glossary, we really want you to think about how can you use this resource to inform program quality. And so if you remember back at the beginning when I started talking about how we got here, I mentioned ELD and ELP. And so for me, one of the ways that we can really inform program quality is by helping our educators understand the difference between ELP, our English language proficiency, which is a 1 point in time test score. For us, that is our access score, and our ELD, which is our English language development, or that ongoing process. And we know that both of those are important. But sometimes our educators get fixated on that ELP. Here's the score, here's what the student can do. Where we really want them to understand that, yes, that is important, but we are looking at taking that score as a starting point and working on the development of our English language abilities. And so that English language development is the piece we're working on each and every day so that ELP can increase. And so I feel that just understanding the difference between those two acronyms can be a very important piece of helping our educators really improve program quality. So that's just an example from me. And the ELD you can find on page 12 and the ELP on page 13. So we're going to give you a little bit of time to go through the glossary, take a look at the terms that are there, get a feel for the document, and answer the question, how can the use of this resource inform our program quality? We will do, again, we'll be quiet. We'll let you have some time to look. Once you start typing in the chat box, we'll begin looking at your responses and sharing with everyone here. So I'm very excited about what Zatley shared about the SCOS document and the hub. And so now we're adding on to that the glossary. All right, I am starting to see a few things come in. Please finish up your thoughts and then we'll share some of them. So we're seeing things like many content teachers are not aware of the terms. It's great for first-year teachers. It gives us consistency in language. It's not just suite of words, exactly. It's basic overall words. So we really looked at the ELD standards and the ESL Title III program. So it should be an all-encompassing tool. Thank you for those of you that think it's a great resource. We really appreciate that it's comprehensive. Same language across grades and disciplines. So going back to that whole big idea of that collaboration and the content being a tool for the language development. This is coming quickly. A great resource for all teachers and administrators. So absolutely, especially if you have a new administrator that is not that familiar with the program. I'm sure I have missed some. So if any of the other teams saw some things that they'd like to jump in and share, please do. And please know I'm looking at two screens, so I apologize for looking away. It is a good quick reference. Yes. Yes. It does help inform stakeholders, and it does have a lot of necessary information. Absolutely. It's more than just a list of words. It really is an insight into our programming. There's an interesting one. It's particularly helpful in the front office for newly enrolled students, so we have a full understanding of the correct terminology to use. Very interesting. Use it at staff meetings. Anybody see anything I missed? Makes me exciting to know that
I
people
love
can
this last one,
Yes.
Ivana.
What is it?
As a
Scrolling down.
parent liaison, this will be phenomenal on helping parents learn about ESL and their children's progress in the program.
Yay, I know Zatley's jumping up and down with that one too.
Wait till they see the parent guide.
I know. I
Right,
just
yes.
love the one about using it in the front office. Is
It's
so important.
Yeah, great idea.
Yeah, sometimes multilingual learners might be also migrant students. They might have another program serving them. So yeah, I really love that comment.
It's the
Great.
first time we've heard it.
Mhm. And I'm glad that you guys really do see that it's not just a list of words, that this is something that can impact our program quality by deepening our understanding, deepening our communication. So thank you for going through the glossary. It's not just a list of words, and we're very excited to be able to share that with you. All right, so now that we have had a chance to look at the glossary, it is time for me to turn it over to Marshall to tell you a little bit more about the crosswalk. Marshall.
All right, thanks, Ivana. So now I get to share about the crosswalk. We provided a high-level overview in the beginning, which is included in the crosswalk. So we will be digging further into the document and the grade level cluster specific changes. So the crosswalk illustrates the variance between the 2012 NCELD Standard Course of Study and the adopted 2020 NCELD Standard Course of Study. So this document provides a range of terms and definitions to support all multilingual learner stakeholders, including administrators, educators, coordinators, and community members in implementation of the NCELD Standard Course of Study. Appearing before the grade level cluster specific crosswalks are two things. The first is a high level crosswalk of the 2012 adopted standards and the 2020 adopted standards. And the second is a high level crosswalk of the 2012 key uses and the 2020 key language uses. Following these high level crosswalks are the grade level cluster specific crosswalks. These grade level cluster specific crosswalks are divided into two sections. Section 1 of the crosswalk is formatted into two columns, with the 2012 NCELD Standard Course of Study being shown in the left-hand column and the 2020 North Carolina ELD Standard Course of Study being shown in the right-hand column. And you'll be able to see the annotated format of this on page 2 of the crosswalk document. Section 2 of the crosswalk is formatted into two columns as well, with the 2012 K-12 performance definitions being shown in the left-hand column and the 2020 NCELD Standard Course of Study proficiency level descriptors being shown in the right-hand column. And you'll be able to see an annotated format of this on page 3 of the crosswalk document. So now we'll get a chance for you all to read through the grade level specific crosswalk, or read through a grade level specific crosswalk on page 6 of the linked document. Take some time and reflect and discuss and think about one big difference or one difference and begin to think about how the change will be implemented. And as you think about that, you can add that to the chat. I see there's a question about the page, the crosswalks. So yeah, starting on page 6 is when you should begin to see the beginning of the grade specific cluster crosswalks. Because page 5 is the high level crosswalk from the 2012 key uses to the 2020 key language uses. And starting on page 6 of the linked document, or what should be there, when you click on that, is where you would then begin with standard 1. You should see that starting on page 6 of the linked document. Let's see, okay, I see another comment. Say it's much more specific for each student's needs, and it provides a link, narrate, argue, etc. through the different proficiency levels. Excellent. Don't forget, as you have thought about it, your differences and how that's going to be implemented, don't forget to add that to the chat. Another comment, it seems to be more specific and the language is simplified. That makes it easier to define the goals. Another person says the 2020 language expectations are much more concise. Another one says it seems more simplified, which I think we've heard in some of our other sessions as well, that they felt that it was more simplified. Another person says it's more concise and easier to understand. Language use is more concrete and specific, which will help us set the goals and expectations for our students. Excellent. Person says, I like the side-by-side format to help see the differences quickly in a simple way for all the staff. The new standards seem more streamlined. Ooh, wow, they're coming in now. Can't even keep up with it all. Lots of great responses here. For instance, I like how the standards are more streamlined and how they've become. Looking at several expectations for the same grade level cluster helps take the can-do statements into concise standards easy to share with content teachers. This person says it's more like the Unpack standards and can easily be aligned with ELA standards. Another person says it's nice to see how a lot of words can be precise and what teachers and the school staff really need. This is definitely an easier way to understand the document. Excellent. Yes, and a question like is the 2020 will be replacing the 2012. That is correct. And then the person says the 2020 version uses verbs that align to the content area standards. Excellent. And for implementation, exemplars as far as lesson plans, formative assessments, student tasks, etc. may need to be provided. Excellent thought of how the implementation would work. Thank you.
These are great comments coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. New standards align with some of the content standards, and this will make it easier for content teachers to see how they can implement them. Excellent.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, we see a lot of that, and I think that's that was the intentionality that WIDA had, is to make a product, to update it, or update their product, I should say, in such a way to where we are able to truly, collaborate with our peers to best meet the needs of our ELs or our MLs now.
It's going to take a minute, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Another person says more personal. Sharing your own story, making connections. Oh, that's nice. Another person says, I don't feel overwhelmed by finding the standards that fit best. That's excellent.
That's great.
Yeah, anything to make things easier is going to go a long way in getting buy-in from all of the applicable stakeholders. Since Susan did the EL headcount, and every single LEA and 177 charters, and was it 6 special schools, and pretty much everybody has got an ML. So it's very important for them to come to that realization and everyone collaborate.
I think we are probably ready to move on. Yes.
Absolutely.
All right. Great.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Marshall, for sharing the crosswalk with us. I am thrilled to be able to be sharing the unpacking documents today. Because these standards are written in such an overarching way, we wanted to create these unpacking documents so teachers will have some shared understanding and language around language expectations to these standards. We've created unpacking documents for each of the same grade level clusters. And for those of you who don't know, those align to the WIDA clusters. We hope that these unpacking documents will help provide clarity for the standards and language expectations as teachers try to align lesson plans and resources and curriculum to support the language and content teaching together. We do want to point out, when you look more closely at these documents, that they are written in student first language rather than teacher language. So you will see things like students highlight or students explain. Each document is written with language expectations that identify what students need to know or be able to do by the end of each grade level cluster. Below the language expectations, you'll see a skills section on the left side and an in the classroom section on the right. The skills section has a clarifying statement for each of the bullets in the language expectation, along with the vocabulary and the unpacked language functions. In the classroom section offers an example of what you might see in a classroom with a sample language objective. So keep in mind, these are just snippets of instruction. It's not a complete lesson plan. So for those of us who are working on these documents, we just had a great time thinking about the open-ended opportunities for students to make connections between language and content. And that's our hope for you as you look through and really explore these documents. And like we've done just with all the other documents, we're going to give you an opportunity to look through these documents, choose a grade level or choose a standard or grade level cluster as you're exploring, and think about how the elements relate to the language expectation. And then reflect on how you might provide teachers with support or training around these documents. We're going to give you about 5 or 10 minutes to look through these. And when you're finished, you can start putting your comments in the chat. And we can review some of those. I'm seeing some comments starting to come into the chat box. By all means, feel free to share any comments that you have. I'm seeing some really wonderful comments, and I'm so glad that people are liking this resource. We fell in love with that, and very clear and great resource. Love that it shows what it looks like in the classroom. Yes. I think a lot of language, oops, where did that one go? A lot of language pieces are done unknowingly, but seeing clarification and how they can be used in the unpacking gives the standard more attention, intentionality, more attention and intentionality, which is exactly what we're talking about. Content teachers are teaching language much more than they're aware of, and we really think that these unpacking documents will help them see that. Oh, Jennifer, I like your comment about, I think if content teachers were made aware of this, this would help them better prepare. I love that. I think, again,
I was just
sorry,
going
go
to say,
ahead.
did you see Tiffany's? We can sit down with teachers and show them which elements are already present in their lesson plans, standards, and pacing guides. Woo!
Right. And you know, content teachers, I don't know if there are any content teachers out there, but they will recognize that they're already doing so much of this.
Yeah, Susan, we have a large number of content area teachers joining us today, so I'm sure they're excited about seeing this resource and going and back to the intentionality, how now they can, whatever they're doing now, that's a good practice, but now they know it's helping their multilingual learners, and this language is more useful.
And they will think about it much more intentionally, probably, in ways they may not have before.
I also see comments about, using these in the PLC meetings.
Yes.
Yeah. The examples of what teachers see from students in the classroom is helpful. Will be, I agree. I think that in the classroom is going to be extremely helpful for, especially I wish I had had this document when I was a new ESL teacher. We all know that teaching ESL is incredibly, it takes a while to get into the rhythm of it. And this document will help that.
Yeah, and you have lots of comments about that. Susan is very specific, it's clear, the detailed examples, practical application.
All right. Well, thank you for those examples. I am now going to turn, or those comments, sorry. I am now going to turn this over to Ivana, who will talk to us about mapping. Ivana?
Thank you, Susan. I want to make sure you see that last question, that last comment that says, this is incredibly helpful for me as a BT2. So on the mark, that is fantastic.
Great.
So now that we've talked about the unpacking, let's take a look at the mapping document. And as we look at the mapping document, think about how these two resources, the unpacking and the mapping, can work together. Actually think about all of these pieces and how this puzzle fits together to help support our multilingual learners. So the ELD standards mapping documents are designed to show the connections between the ELD language expectations and the 5 ELD standards, as well as the content standards for English language arts, mathematics, science, and social studies. So the language expectations, as we've already discussed, are formatted most like the content standards, and they're designed to support the integration of our ELD, our language expectations, and the content to support these multilingual learners. So you will see the ELD standard on the left with the content standard on the right. As we talked about earlier, the ELD standard has the content, the grade level cluster, the key language uses, the mode of communication, and then each of the bullets that we saw in the box earlier, each of the bullets is then given its own row, since the content area standards may have connections that are a little different for each of the bullets. Now, when you get into these documents, you will find that they can be quite long because each of the content documents includes the mapping for kindergarten through 12th grade. And we wanted to do that so everything for that content was in one place. But please know that once you have these documents, you can certainly format them and adapt them and use them in the ways that work best for you and your educators. These mapping documents can be used by all teachers of our multilingual learners to explore the connections between the language and the content for a variety of different purposes, such as developing and aligning the curriculum, planning instruction, and one of my favorites, co-teaching. Please do note that Standard 1, the language for social and instructional purposes, is not included in the mapping document. Also, as we saw in an earlier graphic, Standard 1 applies across the range of all educational settings, and it's embedded throughout all of the ELD standards. We do also want to point out that the connections in these documents are not exhaustive. Teachers should ultimately use their own professional judgment when they're choosing which language expectations and content standards to integrate. So again, in the right-hand corner of that slide, you have the icon for the mapping. You can click on that if you have the slides open, or you can click on the link that has gone into the chat box to go to the mapping documents. So as we said, the mapping documents are divided by ELA, mathematics, science, and social studies. And so we want you to pick one of those. You can look at the entire document, you can pick a particular grade cluster to look at, but we want you to pick one of those content areas and look at the document or the grades and determine what possible applications do you see for these ELD language expectations across the content areas. Based on the comments you just made in the last document, your brains are already rolling in the right direction and you're already seeing those connections. So we'll give you time again to look at the documents to determine what application you see to connect these across the content areas, and then just start typing in the chat box and we will share your comments. Thanks so much. All right, I'm starting to see some comments come in. Keep researching, keep looking, and keep adding those comments. Okay, I'm starting to see some of the same themes that we could use these in PLCs, that it's a great way to connect the ESL and content teachers. We can use it for lesson planning, both by the ESL teacher and the content teachers. Nice, this is a very specific application with the UN model, seeing how this document could be used. Nice, use it to tie into the International Baccalaureate in the lesson programming, lesson planning. The explicitness can be especially helpful for new teachers. So again, looking at our BTs, the progression of complexity.
I love that.
Someone said this document may be used more than the other documents. So I think that will be interesting to hear more about as you dig into it. Again, I see it as a great puzzle with all the pieces really coming together. So I will be interested in hearing more once you dig into them some more. But yes, you know, we've talked about, again, how you can adapt these documents and how these documents have the ELD standards on the left and the content on the right. When you look in the hub and you look at the resources that are there, there's a resource from arts education where they have started with the arts standards on the left and then incorporated things from the ELD on the right. So really focusing on their educators and starting where their content educators are. It's less overwhelming to content teachers. So again, it's not exhaustive. So if a teacher looks at this, well, the standard I'm using today isn't there, that's okay. Pull that standard in. What does it connect with the ELD standards? We just want to keep stressing it's not exhaustive. It is an example that we've tried to bring a lot of opportunities in for our educators to see how there are connections between the ELD standards and the content standards. Clear and easy to follow, fantastic, great for lesson planning. Absolutely, we hope this will help with the collaboration. We know in many of our districts, our ESL teachers are in several different schools. So if they can collaborate with the teachers when they're at the schools, if they can share these tools and help support those content teachers when they're not in the building, how powerful is that? Less overwhelming for content teachers. We're speaking their language now, right? We've got this dot nomenclature that looks a little bit more like what they're used to. Okay, so again, we've got some people getting very specific. 5.P.3 under language of science in 4th to 5th grade. It's exactly what students need to learn. So really solidly connecting the content standards with our ELD standards. You guys seeing anything else that's jumping out? I love how quick they're coming in. Assist in scaffolding. All right. So a lot of great ideas. You will have some more time this afternoon to continue digging deeper into how you can use these resources. And Susan mentioned it earlier, and Sally got all excited. And so I am going to pass it over to Sally to share our very excited parent caregiver resource. Sally.
Thank you, Ivana. And yeah, we love this resource. It's going to be the last one we explore this morning, the Parent Caregiver Guide for English Language Development. We love this resource because it's the very first time that we offer something. We want to empower with parents, give them voice so they know that they are part of the communities. And we know you do a lot of work with them for engagement and you have your parent liaisons. But we wanted something that was very general, that will help all PSUs across the state give that information. So if a parent moves from one district to another one, they still have the basics. And then once they are in their new setting, then they learn what is it that the school is providing to serve their multilingual learners. So we really love that. The information in this guide is organized in 3 main sections. The idea is assisting families in supporting their children developing language skills outside of school. And the sections include information about the ELD identification process, samples of services that may be provided in the schools, the different language instruction educational services, and also an overview of the ELD standards. And we try to make it as the language as simplified as possible, but we also wanted to honor those parents that are in the military, international educators, and international visitors. So we didn't want it to be very simple, but also have all the information that was needed for parents. The resource is currently in English, but we're excited to confirm that it's going to be translated into Spanish. We're going to get this processed in maybe the next couple of months. Within the next month, we hope that it's ready. But please know that we're working on it. It's going to be translated into Spanish. We have heard in the previous sessions that some of our districts who have a large population that speaks another language, Vietnamese, Hmong, Karen, other languages, they have talked about in their implementation plan, allocate some funding to make those translations. And if you do so, please share those translations with us, and we're going to house them in the hub so everybody can access, because we know large districts, they have more resources to do this kind of work, but then our smaller districts might lack those. And if we have them, then it will be great to be able to share this. And also, if some districts are interested in getting the guide printed out by DPI, there is going to be all the information housed in the publications catalog. So you can go access and get information about the pricing and how that process works. But that's also in the making. But we're really happy about this guide and we love it. We really think it's going to be something that will complement what you're doing with your families in your districts, and that we want to hear from you. So I'm going to move to the next slide. And I think we're going to add in the chat. Let me see if we have it in the chat. We're going to add in the chat the link so you can access. And we added different images. We tried to make it as user-friendly as possible. We have an infographic showing the different processes and trying to help parents get used to and learn about the why their child is in this program and why they're receiving some services and how they can exit. And okay, so we have this slide and your time to explore. We want you to visit the guide and look at the different sections. So in section 1, let's look and see how would this complement your current processes. How can you use this as part of what you are already doing in the districts? And sections 2 and 3, think how you're going to share this information with your families, your parents and caregivers. How can you help them become familiar with this information so they understand what the program is and the services? So we're going to leave the slide up, and we have the different links, and we are going to invite you to please explore and reflect on these questions, and we're going to mute and come back once we see some comments popping up in the chat, so we know that you have had the time to explore. I see some comments and good catch. I was looking at page 5 and yeah, Jennifer, it should say or. All right, good catch. Great. We're going to make sure that that gets updated. Thank you. There is a question in the chat about translations. Yes, we're going to translate this into Spanish in the next month or 2 months. And we are looking at other districts. It's a local decision to make translations into the languages that you have more representation in your districts. And what we're sharing is if you work on a translation in a language different than Spanish, then share it so we can upload it in the hub and then everybody has access to that. But initially, we're going to start with Spanish, and that language has been approved because that's the top language that we have in the state. And we thought that would be a good starting point for all districts to have this guide in English and Spanish. I see more comments. This resource will be a very helpful addition to our faculty curriculum night. I plan on sharing these with parents during a face-to-face meeting and having our parent liaison explaining information so parents can understand and ask questions. Yes. Let me go back to the top so we can see more comments. Yes, first section is about the letters, the services. And yes, it will come in Spanish again. We made sure that you can have it in Spanish. And as we start getting other resources shared from the districts, we're gonna make sure you know we have it in any other languages.
This is also a great document to share with people who are new to your school, who don't necessarily know the ESL program like many of you do. So a great document, not just for parents, but for new administrators, again, beginning teachers, or even new teachers, seasoned teachers who are coming to your school for the first time.
Yes, Susan, thank you. It's so important that everybody understands how the program works and how students are identified. And there's this conversation, this screening process, and it's not just because of certain characteristics in the students. Parts can be shared when sending home. Yes, we have heard in previous sessions that some people want to use the section 1 at the beginning of the year, section 2 when they offer a faculty night and a parent night, a family night, and then the other section as they send materials home for at home learning, so then parents get more resources. Great resource for parents that will help them know how we work with their children at school. Yes. And we added some information about how to advocate for their children so they know what are their rights and what are the school's obligations and why is it that the school is asking them for some information and adding some services, additional services to the students so they understand the why behind all that. So we really wanted to include that information for parents. And again, we really know this is a complement. This is not replacing what you have in the districts. And we wanted just to make it very general. So it's an overview of the program, and then you can incorporate everything that you do. Okay, do you see any other comments, Susan?
No, I think we're ready to go on to the next slide if you are.
Perfect. Yes, thank you.
All right. So we are going to give you an opportunity to go into some breakout sessions. You will be randomly assigned. So if you are in a room with a lot of people and cannot unmute yourself, please go to the chat box and participate through the chat. So we are going to start those breakout rooms, and what we want you to do is talk about which resources sparked your interest. Think about what you liked about them, and then talk about how you might use those resources in your districts. This is a great time for us to collaborate with people outside of our districts to talk about really how you might use these resources and share ideas with one another. So I am going to start the breakout sessions. Thanks very much, and we'll see you in about 7 minutes. Please make sure you accept the invitation to the breakout room that you should see on your screen. Looks like we've got everyone back. All right. So we're just going to have a quick reminder to post your questions in the parking lot. If, as you look through these resources, you think of ideas of future professional development opportunities, by all means, share those with us. That will help guide our school year, our PD for the 2022-23 school year. Save that link. Be sure to come back to it if you have questions as you're going through the resources, or if you want to just read what other questions and answers are there. So we have shared a lot of information with you this morning, and we know that there are things that have already come up that are going to distract you from this afternoon. I'm going to ask everyone to mute themselves, please. Thanks. So we know that there are distractions. We know that a lot of people need your time and energy, but we're going to ask you to return this afternoon because it's the critical place or the critical time for you and your team to start making your plans for your implementation. I do want to tell you that you know Ivana, she loves those elevator speeches. So we are going to start promptly at 1 o'clock. And she is going to ask you to share a 6-word sentence about how you believe these resources will benefit multilingual learners in your PSU.
Hi,
all right,
everybody.
there we go.
Perfect. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. The recording has started up again. You'll go back a slide. Yeah. Great. We know a couple people have fire drills. Most of you are back from lunch. Thank you for joining us again. We know that we covered a lot of information this morning, and now it's time to bring it back together and determine how you're going to apply it within your own PSU. So let's start by looking at that parking lot. We know that some of you have been using the parking lot. We know that some of the questions that came up today were already actually in the parking lot because they are common questions that a lot of people are asking us. So as we scroll through on the parking lot, looks like there's a little bit of a formatting mess up on my end, but we have a number of questions. The answers have been coming in from NCDPI, and you will see that there are a number of questions that you asked today that the answers are already there. One of the ones that I want to point out is near the bottom. Yeah, good, you're on the right page, where it says, is the implementation of these standards a requirement for charter schools? And the answer is important for everybody, not just charter schools, but charter schools included. We are all required to use the standard course of study for North Carolina. And these WIDA standards are the ELD standard course of study for North Carolina. Yesterday, we had a question about how do you get your content teachers to use them when they're not required? Well, technically, we're required to use all of our standard course of study. So if you have multilingual learners, this is our SCOS, and all of our teachers should be using them. So just things like that might help you with wording, that might help you with concepts. Those answers are going into this chart. And then down at the bottom of the chart, we have a place for you to add ideas that you have, or things you'd like to know more about, things that you would like us to consider as we are planning further professional learning. So please keep using the parking lot throughout the training, and also keep that link so you can refer back to it after this training. All right, next slide. Susan's excited to get me to my elevator speech. So those of you who know me know that I'm long-winded, and so I have learned to give elevator speeches, which are not usually quite as short as 6 words, but we're going to try a 6-word elevator speech for you to explain to someone how these resources can contribute to the success of multilingual learners. So maybe you walk out of your training today and someone catches you and says, hey, what was that training about? What did you learn? Or you run into someone in the hallway tomorrow, or a supervisor, and they say, well, how are these resources going to help multilingual learners? You'll be ready with a really quick answer in hopes of kicking off a longer conversation. So we'll give you a few seconds in case you didn't have time during lunch to think about your 6 words. If you've already got them, go ahead and type them in the chat. But give us a 6-word elevator speech on how the resources we covered this morning can contribute to the success of multilingual learners. And I'll be quiet for a few seconds so you can type. All right, for me, those were my few seconds. So we're already getting some in the chat box. These resources will empower all stakeholders. I love it. Clear, concise standards lead to success. Clarifying resources to share with others. So we're still hearing that collaboration in the theme, even with just these 6 words. We're hearing collaboration across content, across roles, easy to understand, clear to convey. I'm going to miss some as I read, so others of you jump in with these if you want to. Collaborating with peers, professionals, and parents. Yes, getting those parents in there. Awesome resources to support multilingual learners. Collaboration is coming up in a lot of these. Consistent, that's powerful. Connecting the ELD with the content standards. Consistency.
Alignment and collaboration to drive success. I love that.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah. Clarity for teachers equal success for students. And it's 6 words because they use the equal sign. Very clever, Kelly.
I love it. Bridge to the content area. We've got that bridge. Standards align with content standards. All right, so we're seeing again some great themes of how the way that we are able to present the ELD standards now are really going to help us support each other, not one new thing, but something that helps support what's already going on. A resource to align efforts, the ELD and core content features, absolutely, and they are paramount to greater gains. Fantastic. All right, keep them coming. We are saving all of these. Maybe we'll make some really cool Wordle or poster, but please do continue to share. All right, so we're moving on to our implementation planning. Since we spent our morning exploring our adopted standards and the new supporting resources, we really want to give you an opportunity this afternoon to think about how you might begin implementing all of this in the next school year. So we're going to be providing you with a good amount of time to work with your PSU team to begin these plans. And then we'll also provide you time to share your plans and ideas with the other PSUs. So we mentioned it earlier this morning, how awesome it is if you are together in a room working. Again, we encourage you to log in individually for several reasons. 1, to get your certificate for CEUs, but 2, in hopes that you'll be able to participate in the second breakout room where you can then share the wonderful ideas that you've created within your own PSU with other PSUs. All right, but before we open up the breakout rooms for you and your PSU teams, we want to provide you with some guidance around what you may want to consider as you develop your implementation plans with your teams today. So to ensure your implementation plans are comprehensive, here's some things to think about. Think of how you'll involve all stakeholders, including your content teachers, your administrators, your coaches. Think of how you'll ensure that there is collaboration across roles, like you've been talking about all day today. Also think about how you'll train your staff on the standards and supporting resources. Will it be in the summer for everybody? Will you provide PD based on by role? Also think about how you'll ensure that your stakeholders' questions are answered. Because this is new for everybody, how will you provide technical assistance? Also consider how you'll determine your staff's readiness to implement the standards, such as how will you determine support based on their needs? And lastly, how will you measure your progress and success with implementation? So how will you support implementation throughout the year after PD with your staff would be something you might want to think about. So as you're doing all this planning with your PSU teams, we want you to keep in mind that next year you'll be using the program quality review quite a bit. And so that's going into the chat box. Hopefully you've seen the program quality review already in some of our listserv messages. So there will be a needs assessment sent to you in June, as well as the quality review. Both of these items tell us how to best support you in your implementation. So we tell you this so 1, you can be ready when those things are shared. But more importantly, 2, we share them so that you can think about how you'll support implementation throughout the year, not just the one and done PD session at the beginning of the year. So we'd like to just reiterate that regardless of whether you are a subgrantee or a non-subgrantee, the PQR that you'll continue to hear more and more about is not meant to be evaluative or used for compliance. We want to make sure that we share that the purpose of the PQR is to help PSUs reflect on, develop, and or improve the EL program quality. So it could be used as a self-reflection, conducting school needs assessments, identifying areas of success or areas of growth, determining resources, or determining professional learning needs. So for this very reason, you'll see that the needs assessment you'll receive in June will be very closely aligned to the PQR. All right, that's a lot of information. The link for the PQR is in the chat box. And again, those are two separate things, the PQR and then the needs assessment in June. All right, I'm going to take a breath and I'm going to turn it over to Marshall for him to share with us about the implementation plan template.
All right, thank you, Ivana. So now we're going to take a look at the implementation plan template. So we're going to open this up and go through it. If you look at the top of the document, you'll see that the first section gives a narrative and an approximate timeline for the 2 phases of implementation. So you've got the first phase, which is initial, and that's at approximately 12 months. And then you've got the full implementation at approximately 3 to 5 years. So that gives you the idea that this implementation, of course, is both in the near term and then as a long-term process, and that you have time both to get it started and to fully implement it. All right. The next section is broken down into 4 sections. And so you have communication, data collection, support documents, and professional development. Now, within each of these sections, there are bulleted suggestions for what could be done and or how it could be done. And these sections also have, or some of them have, I should say, a note at the bottom of them showing how completion of some of those bulleted suggestions can help to meet the indicators on the PQR. And so that's a good note there. Below that, you'll find 2 sections, which are blank template forms, and they will allow you to basically designate, track, allocate, and organize your implementation. And on the next slide, what we'll see is an example of what that might look like, right? And so in this case, this fictitious district clearly thought about follow-up support and about how to use the documents in their implementation plan. So this is an example of what you may want to do as a part of your plan. And here you can see that Jane and John Smith, for example, they required all staff to attend the DPI summer conference, right? So that's a nice plug for our summer conference. And then in the notes section, they said, okay, well, you know what? We're going to use the Unpacking document, and we're going to attend coffee chats, and then we're also going to use the hub for part of our resources. So those goes to show you how you can actually use this template as a way to show when. So for example, in June and then in August, so that's their initial implementation, right? And so, like I said, this could be used as an example for you. And with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Ivana.
All right, thank you so much. So now is when it really gets exciting. It's the opportunity for you guys to break into your teams. So as we mentioned before, the first part of this afternoon will be planning by PSU team. We're going to be giving you 30 minutes to work together. Now, if you're working in a room together, and you're all on one computer, again, we're going to be popping in and out of the rooms because we love to hear what you guys are saying. Just let us know, or we'll figure it out when no one talks to us, and we'll go over to another room. But it's okay for you to be in that room and not on the computers during the breakout time. The way the breakout rooms will be set up, you'll have the opportunity, if you wanted to pop over to another PSU to ask a question or to hear what they're doing, you'd be able to pick a different breakout room to go into. And if by some chance you are a team of 1, there will be a room entitled Team of 1 that you can go into with the thoughts that maybe another team of 1 or a group of 2 might come and join you in there. So if you want to go into that Team of 1 room, please feel free to go there. In previous sessions, we've had maybe someone who couldn't attend with the rest of their team on the normal day that was here alone, and then several of them got together and were able to plan and discuss together. So Susan is going to open the breakout rooms. And just like in the past, sometimes that little breakout room invitation might be hidden, but you'll have the chance to see the name of your PSU, choose the join button, and go on into your room. You'll have the timer up on your screen. We'll give you probably a 10-minute warning and a 2-minute warning. After those 30 minutes, we'll bring you back together. Then we'll go into the breakout rooms that are random so that you have the chance to share with and hear from people from other PSUs. Each of our sessions, people have shared that this has been very helpful and powerful for them to think about things maybe in a different way and to share the great things you've thought about in your PSU. Finally, we'll bring you back together from that one. That one will probably be about 15 minutes, maybe 10. We'll bring you back from that one and then get a little bit of share out, either by unmuting yourself or typing in the chat box to share with all of us something you heard or something that you said. So Susan, are we ready with our breakout?
Yes, I am ready. I'm going to go ahead and start the breakout rooms.
I see people coming back. The rooms will all be closing in about 20 seconds. Welcome back. All right, everybody should pretty much be back in the room now. Welcome back. I had fun going around and saying hi to some of you all and hearing lots of interesting things that you are planning. I heard a lot of interesting things, people looking at beginning of year opportunities, looking at their schedules and figuring out how to fit things in, looking at how to really bring in content teachers, some focus on secondary, lots of interesting things. And so now we're going to have the opportunity for you guys to go here, because you probably weren't popping in and out of rooms like I was. We'll give you guys the opportunity to go and hear from each other. So the breakout rooms will send you randomly in with other PSUs, and you will have the opportunity to hear what they have done. You can either share something that you've said or share something that you hear when you come back into the room. So we are ready for breakout 3. I think we're going to go with 10 minutes. If somebody really wants longer than that, let us know. But we want to take some time when we come back into the room to have you guys share out. I'm not shy about calling on people I know or pointing out things I hear. So I hope some of you will plan on unmuting and just really sharing with you what you've heard for ideas for implementation. So Susan, if we are ready for our next breakout.
I'm ready. I'm starting the breakouts.
Breakouts are starting. Once again, you need to click to go into your room.
Okay, you guys, I am going to end the breakout rooms and bring everyone back.
Awesome.
Oh, thank you.
I was going to wait till they were all back and then click on and see if you could handle it, but no, I'm kidding. All right. Let's see, we've got about 17 seconds. Some of you are already back in the room. The rest of you are on the way. Welcome back. So the rooms are closing out. Thank you guys for coming back. Welcome, welcome. Once again, I had a great time popping in and out of rooms. And I'm not shy about calling on people or throwing out ideas if I need to, because I know we're getting late into our afternoon, but we would really love to hear from you. You can type in the chat box something you said or something you heard. We'd also really love for you to unmute, even show your camera if you'd like to, and tell us a little bit about what you've talked about as far as implementation. It can be something you said or something you heard. I'd like to jump in there so I don't have to call on people.
Yeah, in that little group we were just in, Angela Ellis in Edgecombe, one of my teammates, she had a good idea that it's our responsibility to present this to the schools. It'd be awesome if DPI could come up with a PowerPoint maybe something that just like a skeleton that we could use and manipulate it ourselves. That would be very
How about
helpful.
what we just did today?
Maybe in a more concise form, but yeah, something that that doesn't overwhelm them.
Because you definitely have access to this and can adapt it. We've also got a presentation that we did with our EL coordinators. So yeah, we're on it. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you. You want to call on anybody? No.
You can find those the EL coordinators one, I think, in the hub, right?
It is.
Yeah,
Mhm.
great. Feel
Yeah.
free to download those and make whatever changes you want for your PSU.
And I think that one might even be more compact than this.
I'll paste the link in the chat just for
Thanks.
those with
Thank you.
some time to explore. Okay.
Awesome. Well,
Talk for just I was in a small group, and one of the people in my group, I really thought she had a great idea, and she was at the high school. Of course, I'm not, but I was thinking for my high school people, it would be a great suggestion. But she was talking about, sharing the content from this with them, but that she would only she would meet with the history department to share that part, so, or the math department to share that part, because then it's more content specific and they don't feel like they're just using time, that it pertains specifically to them. So I thought that was a really good idea.
nice. So just really meeting at the need, only sharing what needs to be shared. Fantastic.
That's a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
That's similar to what not only my team was talking about, but also when we switched to meet with the other teams, we both were talking about how it would be beneficial to have like a district training, like a mandatory district training for everybody at the beginning of the year, but then also train our instructional coaches on it to bring up at PLCs, since our PLCs are content specific. That way they can touch base with them throughout the year in the PLCs, so that it doesn't fall off anybody's radar.
Nice. I did hear PLCs mentioned in a number of different breakouts. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. One or two more before we wrap it up. I heard some interesting things about connecting it with PSYOP. If anybody wants to share about that. A number of people talking about how to connect it to what you're already doing so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Well, I was going to say in my group, they talked about, let me turn on my video. Every year they revisit their pacing guides and the curriculum mapping, and just include the English language development standards in that. So it's really blended well with what the teachers are already doing, and doesn't look like it's an extra step or something extra that we're putting on their plate.
Very nice. Thank you. I did also hear someone talk about every year they do, I believe they said, unpacking of the standards. And so it would be easy to just add the ELD unpacking to the other contents that are unpacked if that person wants to share.
That's a great idea.
I could call her by name, but I won't.
Okay, maybe you're talking about me.
Is that Gertrude? Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yes, I was just stating that every year at the beginning of the school year when we start, we meet and unpack standards for all of our content teachers. It doesn't matter, and do a curriculum focus. And so it would be easy to include the ELD standards right in there with the content. Then it's automatically aligned, just like the young lady said before. It's there. You will have your math. You have your math curriculum specialist, unpacking standards, talking about curriculum, talking about lesson planning, best practices. It's already there, a nice fit. It's not anything new, or and they can see the alignment and realize that it's just an easy merge, So yeah, we do that at the beginning of every school year. So that was my initial thought. That is the best way to get it in and jumpstart it.
Thank you so much for jumping on and sharing that. I think it's a fantastic idea. All right, I will pause for just a few seconds. I don't want anybody to lose sleep tonight because you didn't get the opportunity to share your idea. Type in the chat or unmute. Susan,
You're a
laughing.
crack up. I am
Okay.
cracking up at you.
All right, so I am going to turn it over to Susan, who is cracking up, to let her tell us more
At you.
about the summer conference and take us home.
All right. Thanks, Ivana. So funny. You make me laugh. So, once again, we are excited to be hosting our summer conference. Mark your calendars for June 20th through the 24th. And we are going to do exactly what we've talked about today. We're going to take a deeper dive into these standards. So, our theme this summer is From Standards to Success. And sessions will be presented on crosswalking the 2012 to 2020 ELD standards, unpacking the ELD standards, mapping the ELD standards. We will also have a session on data and how we work with the ELD standards, as well as a session for family caregiver engagement. And as you all know, we're so excited about that new document. So this year's conference will take place in a virtual environment. We thought a lot about that and went back and forth in our conversations and decided, considering the last 2 years, that what we would do is stick to the virtual format that will allow educators to minimize disruptions to work, disruptions to plans with family and friends. So the conference will span over 5 days, and there'll be 5 sessions, 2 hours each. And we have it organized by educator role. So you will choose a path. And if you're an ESL specialist or an EL lead teacher, there's a path for you. ESL teachers, there's a path for ESL teachers and a path for content teachers. And then we have a path for people in smaller districts or with smaller numbers of English or multilingual learners. And they serve more than just that role of the EL coordinator or the ESL teacher. So we encourage you to choose the path that works best for you. Each day we will also have office hours at the end of the day for you to jump on and ask any questions or share any ideas that you have. We haven't yet released the registration, but we will. We've captured, we obviously have all your emails, so we will share this with you. And this might be a great jumping off point for you to get other instructional coaches involved or content teachers involved or administrators involved that you think might benefit from this summer conference experience. If you have any questions about the summer conference, by all means, put them in the chat. Okay. So we've done so much work today. And before we bring our session to a close, we just want to take a final few seconds or moments to reflect and answer your questions. We know we've given you a lot to think about. So if you could, in the chat, really quickly tell us what will be your first next step. You're going to finish this day out, and then what are your plans? What are you going to do with the information that you've learned about today? If you want to put your notes in the chat, that would be great, or feel free to unmute yourself.
I have a question. I am here for Macon County Schools. My question is when we start working on these plans and implementing, can we contact you guys? Like, how is the best way to contact you guys if we have a question? Is it email? Is there a certain person we should email? Like, how does that look like? What does that look like?
It's a great question, but we're all available. If you, anybody remember, is it ESL Title III at DPI?
Yeah,
We all get it.
yeah, I put it in the chat again.
Okay. But you have this slide deck. All of our emails are on there. one of us will get back to you, or all of us will get back to you, or the person who, we'll get back to you one way or another. But you are
Thank
welcome
you.
to contact us and with any questions you have.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Sure. I'm seeing a lot of things about plans. Jump on here, you guys. Talking with my EL team as well as the administrators of my schools to make an implementation plan. Great. Meet with EL teachers to review documents and continue to plan with the PSU team. Share with ESL teachers. My first step is to review the document plan, to see it to staff. Excellent. Study more of the documents. Bring our team back together to work on our implementation plan. These are all great first steps. I see a question. Will the summer conference be online? Yes, it is a virtual conference.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
So going back to summer conference, you said there are different pathways. Does that mean that each pathway will be each day, morning and afternoon for 4 hours times the 5 days? Or will it be somehow different?
Ivana, do you want to manage that question?
Thanks. So I don't have the schedule in front of me, but each of the strands has a different time block. And to the best of my memory, it is just the 2-hour time block. Most of them are happening in the morning, 9 to 11. And then each strand will have a different course each day, but the courses will be kind of flip-flopping. So no, it is not the 4 hours.
Okay, so not 4 hours a day,
Still 2
really
hours.
More like 2 hours a day.
Yeah,
All
it's
right,
2 hours
perfect.
a
That's
day.
good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, and
Plus
plus
go ahead.
office hours. Yeah, we should have the
Yeah.
registration out pretty soon, and then you'll be able to see exactly which strand is at which time. But thank you for asking that.
And again, the strands will be at different times, but if there's a time that works better for you, pick the strand of the time that works better for you as well. You will have that flexibility. So if you're an administrator and you choose an ESL teacher strand, we're not going to kick you out. All right. So on behalf of the DPI ESL Title III team, it has been our privilege to spend this day with you and listen to you and share with you. And we're so excited about what we've seen here today. We understand how valuable your time is, and the fact that you spent this time with us. We're so grateful, and we are grateful every day for the work that you do with the multilingual learners in our state. So please feel free to, if you're so inclined, to complete the PD evaluation. Any help or direction you can give us to make us better is always welcome. The link is in the chat for the evaluation. Again, just a reminder, hang on to this link for the parking lot. Check back tomorrow, see if we have another PD tomorrow. Might be questions in there that you haven't yet thought of. By all means, you can continue to access that. And I am going to stop the recording. So now the recording has stopped. If you